I looked at my wife sitting there in her own living room, refusing to defend the man she had promised to love and honor for better or worse. And I understood that she had already made her choice about our future together, and I was not part of the plan she was developing with her new advisory board of relationship consultants. These women had convinced her that trading up was not only possible but necessary for her personal growth and happiness. And Sarah's silence had just confirmed that she was ready to follow their advice, regardless of what it would cost our marriage. The weight of that moment settled over me like a heavy blanket because I finally understood that continuing to fight for someone who wouldn't fight for me was just another form of self-destruction, and I deserved better than spending the rest of my life trying to prove my worth to people who had already decided I wasn't good enough. At that moment, I realized there was only one thing left for me to do. The Great Escape and its aftermath. I walked upstairs and started packing my clothes into 2 suitcases while Sarah sat in the living room processing what had just happened during her friend's intervention that had turned into my resignation from a marriage I never wanted to quit. The sound of my dresser drawers opening and closing must have finally convinced her. This wasn't just a dramatic gesture, because she appeared in the doorway asking what I was doing, like the answer wasn't completely obvious. I grabbed my books from the nightstand and my coffee mug from the kitchen counter and loaded everything into my car while she followed me to the driveway, asking where I was going and when I would be back. Her shock that I was actually leaving, instead of trying harder to prove my worth to her friends, was almost comical, because she seemed genuinely surprised that someone would choose to walk away rather than continue subjecting themselves to systematic humiliation disguised as helpful advice. The woman who had just sat silently while her friends explained why I belonged in a different league than her was now confused about why I didn't want to stay and continue playing their rigged game where I was always the loser. She kept asking if we could talk about this tomorrow, like sleeping on it would somehow change the fact that she had chosen her coffee club over her husband when it mattered most. The relief I felt while loading my car was honestly surprising, because I had expected to feel devastated about leaving the house we had bought together and the life we had built over 8 years of marriage. Instead, I felt like someone who had finally escaped from a job where every day involved performance reviews conducted by people who had already decided I was incompetent and needed constant improvement to meet their standards. The weight of constantly being evaluated and found wanting by Rebecca and her crew had been crushing my spirit for months, and suddenly I was free from their weekly assessments of my worth as a human being. Walking away became an act of self-preservation rather than giving up on our relationship, because I finally understood that you cannot save a marriage when only one person is willing to defend it against outside attacks. Sarah had made her choice during that horrible silence when her friends delivered their league assessment, and she chose to remain quiet instead of telling them they were wrong or asking them to leave our house immediately. The woman who had once promised to have my back in any situation had just demonstrated that she would rather sit there like a passive observer while strangers destroyed her husband's reputation than risk disappointing her new advisory committee. Rebecca and her coffee club cronies probably celebrated their successful mission that evening while pretending to comfort Sarah about her husband's dramatic overreaction to their caring intervention, because they had gotten exactly what they wanted without having to admit they had been trying to destroy our marriage from the beginning. I could picture them sitting around someone's granite countertop, explaining to Sarah that my departure proved all their points about my character and maturity level, while offering to help her navigate the exciting world of dating men who were actually in her league and could provide the lifestyle she deserved. The freedom from constant judgment that I experienced after leaving was like getting released from prison after serving time for crimes. I didn't commit because these women had turned my own home into a courtroom where I was perpetually on trial for the offense of being insufficiently impressive for their friend. No more Tuesday afternoon tribunals where my career choices and weekend plans were analyzed for evidence of inadequacy, and no more conversations where everything I said was interpreted as proof that Sarah had settled for less than she deserved when she married me. My departure exposed the true nature of these friendships and revealed that they were built on a foundation of competition and superiority rather than genuine care for Sarah's well-being. Because friends who really wanted her to be happy would have encouraged her to work on her marriage instead of convincing her to abandon it. The coffee club had operated like a toxic support group where the main activity involved tearing down other people's relationships to make themselves feel better about their own lives. And Sarah had chosen to join their destructive game instead of protecting what we had built together. The long-term impact of choosing toxic friends over a loyal spouse played out exactly as I expected, because Sarah discovered that her new advisory committee was more interested in drama than actually helping her find happiness in her next relationship. These women, who had spent months explaining why I wasn't good enough for her, would eventually turn their critical analysis toward whatever new men entered her life, because their hobby was finding fault with other people's choices rather than celebrating their friends' happiness. 6 months after I moved out, I heard through mutual friends that Sarah was struggling with dating and feeling lonely, while her coffee club continued their weekly meetings, where they probably discussed her romantic prospects with the same level of inappropriate involvement they had shown in evaluating my worth as her husband. The women who had convinced her that she deserved better than a stable marriage with someone who loved her were now watching her learn that finding someone better is significantly more difficult than destroying what you already have. Jessica and Maria and Linda had gotten exactly what they wanted, but now they had to deal with the consequences of their successful campaign to convince Sarah that she needed to upgrade her husband, because destroying someone else's marriage is easier than maintaining your own happiness. These women would eventually have to watch Sarah navigate the dating world as a divorced woman in her 30s, while pretending they had nothing to do with ending her 8-year relationship with someone who actually loved and supported her before they entered the picture with their league classifications and lifestyle comparisons. Driving away from that house, for the last time, I realized I was regaining more than just physical space. I was reclaiming my dignity from people who had spent months trying to convince me I wasn't worthy of basic respect from my own wife. The most devastating part of this entire experience wasn't losing my marriage, but discovering that the person I had trusted most in the world was willing to let strangers attack me while she sat there offering no defense or protection. But as painful as that realization was, it also revealed something important about the difference between people who build others up and people who tear them down.